Let me tell you something about stillness. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is not doing nothing. Stillness is choosing not to be moved by everything. See, we're living in a world addicted to noise. Constant motion. Everybody talking, posting, proving, performing. Trying to be louder than the last voice in the room, but I've learned. The loudest person ain't always the strongest. Sometimes the one who says nothing at all. That's the one who's already won. The strongest response is no response, because it says, I am not at the mercy of your chaos. I will not be dragged into your storm. My peace is mine, and it is not negotiable. You gotta understand, when you don't react, when you don't swing back, when you choose to sit in stillness and observe before you move, that's not weakness. That's a power this world doesn't know how to measure. They can't screenshot your silence. They can't twist your words when you offer none. And they can't pull you into a circus when you're not playing the clown. Stillness ain't easy. It takes training. It takes faith. It takes self-respect. Because everything in you wants to rise up, clap back, set the record straight. But let me ask you something. What are you really trying to prove, and to who? When you're grounded in who you are, when you know your worth, you realize you don't need to argue. You don't need to defend. You don't need to show up to every fight you're invited to. Stillness is confidence. Stillness is clarity. Stillness is power under control. Because when you don't move, when you don't give in, when you don't flinch at the noise, people notice. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't. And in a world addicted to response, that restraint becomes revolutionary. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were on set, long hours, tension hanging in the air like smoke. Everybody was on edge, tempers tight, patience thin. You could feel it before anyone said a word. That kind of atmosphere where one spark could light the whole room on fire. And then it happened. Someone I respected, no less, came at me sideways. Sharp words, disrespect dressed up like a joke. One of those comments that sounds playful, but it cuts deep. Everybody heard it. Eyes turned. The silence after, that was louder than the insult itself. Now let me tell you something. The old me, I would have stepped forward face to face. My pride would have led the charge. I would have matched fire with fire, turned that set into a showdown. You know the feeling. That heat in your chest, the words climbing up your throat, begging to be unleashed. But something inside me, something older, wiser said, don't, not this time. And I remembered my mother's voice. She used to say, Denzel, sometimes people throw dirt not because you're wrong, but because you're shining too bright. That hit me right then and there, so I stood still, I breathed. I looked the man in the eye, and I said nothing, not out of fear, not out of weakness, out of power, out of choice, out of discipline. You know what happened next. He backed down, not because I embarrassed him, not because I out-talked him, but because my silence reflected something his words couldn't reach. That man was looking for a reaction, and I gave him nothing to feed off, and let me be real with you, that silence. It echoed longer than any response could have. You see, when you don't rise to the bait, you don't just win the moment, you rise above it. I learned that day that sometimes your silence isn't avoidance. It's authority. It's saying, you don't control me. My peace is not up for grabs. And I carry that lesson with me every day. Not just in Hollywood, not just in the public eye, but in life, in every room I walk into, every conversation, every conflict, because that moment taught me something that no award, no spotlight, no applause ever could. You don't have to respond to be powerful. You just have to know who you are. There's a difference, a deep difference, between noise and wisdom. Noise is everywhere. It's fast, reactive, loud. It's impulse dressed up as urgency. It's ego shouting through a megaphone, trying to be heard over a world that's already screaming. You scroll through your phone and it's all there. Arguments, opinions, claps back, callouts. People fighting battles with strangers just to feel seen, just to feel right, just to feel something. But wisdom whispers. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't compete. It doesn't fight to be right. Wisdom waits. Wisdom watches. Wisdom chooses. See, noise is about being first. First to speak, first to react, first to jump. But wisdom is about being right. Right in intention, right in timing, right in direction. You don't learn that overnight. That's not in the textbooks. That's learned through heartbreak, through failure, through getting burned because you moved too fast. I've been that man. I've been the one who reacted before thinking, the one who jumped in to defend something that didn't need defending. I've said things I wish I could take back. And you know what I learned? Every time I responded from ego, I walked away feeling empty, because noise satisfies in the moment, but wisdom satisfies in the long run. Noise wants attention. Wisdom wants peace, and peace doesn't need an audience. When you're driven by ego, every slight feels personal. Every look feels like a challenge. Every word becomes a weapon. But when you're driven by purpose, you're no longer distracted by every opinion, every critic, every confrontation. You start seeing the bigger picture. Wisdom is restraint. Wisdom is knowing the value of your energy and choosing where to spend it. Not everything deserves your voice. Not every opinion deserves your correction. And not every fool deserves your reply. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's intelligence. Sometimes holding your tongue isn't cowardice, it's mastery, because what people don't realize is, silence doesn't mean you don't know what to say. It means you know better than to say it, and that's power. When you operate from wisdom instead of ego, your silence becomes a message, a clear one. It says, I'm not here to play your game, I'm playing for something bigger. And when you live like that, noise stops shaking you. Because you're anchored in something deeper, something the world can't touch, emotional intelligence. Now that's the real power. We talk about strength like it's always about muscles or dominance, or who can speak the loudest in a room. But let me tell you, strength isn't how high you raise your voice, it's how well you can control it. It's not how fast you clap back, it's how long you can hold your peace in the face of provocation. That's emotional intelligence. It's knowing that every reaction has a cost, and sometimes the price you pay for proving a point is your own peace. See, we're wired to react. Somebody disrespects you, your pride steps in. Somebody lies on your name, your instincts tell you to clear it up. You want to set the record straight. You want to let them know they picked the wrong one. But the truth is, the moment you react out of emotion, you're no longer in control. They are. Emotional intelligence is the ability to feel everything and still choose your response. Not suppress it, not ignore it, but to feel that fire rise up in you and say, not this time. I've got more to lose than they do. That takes maturity, that takes patience, that takes vision. You ever notice how people will poke and prod just to get a reaction out of you? Because your reaction is their reward, and if you give it to them, they win. They got you to break your peace. They pulled you down to their level, but when you stay composed, when you breathe, pause, and don't bite, they're left swinging at the air. They don't know what to do with someone who can't be provoked. That kind of discipline, that shakes people, that quiet confidence, that unnerves them, because emotional intelligence says, I see what you're doing, but I know who I am. It's walking into the room and knowing you don't have to compete. You don't have to dominate the conversation. You don't have to correct every lie or chase down every rumor, because what's meant for you cannot be destroyed by their words, and what's not meant for you can't be saved by your defense. You start to realize that you don't need to react to keep your worth intact. You don't need to defend your name every time it's thrown in the dirt. You don't need to chase justice in every comment section or debate table. Because your dignity doesn't live in their approval, it lives in your restraint. That's when you become powerful. That's when you stop responding to everything and start responding to what matters. When your choices are driven not by impulse, but by intention, not by pride, but by purpose, and when you move from that place, when your emotions serve you, not control you, you don't just protect your peace. You command it. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them assume. Let them write their little stories in the dark. Because here's the truth. You don't owe anyone a reaction just because they expect one. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. That's not strength. That's distraction. And you weren't put on this earth to be distracted. See, when you stop responding to everything, people start to wonder. That's the shift. That's when the power moves in silence. When you no longer explain, defend, or chase down lies. Suddenly they realize they can't touch you like they used to, because you're not dancing to their rhythm anymore. You've stepped into something higher, something untouchable. You become unshakable, not because the wind doesn't blow, but because your roots run deep. Because you've built something inside that no insult can crack, no gossip can dent, no petty game can pull apart. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's walking in the fullness of who you are, without needing applause or permission. You get to a place where your silence becomes sacred, where you know your energy is expensive, and you're not spending it on every little offense. You've been through too much, grown through too much, fought your way through storms that would have broken someone else. So now, when someone throws shade, you don't flinch. When someone comes at you sideways, you don't engage. Why? Because you're too focused, too grounded, too clear on where you're headed to let someone pull you back into chaos. And here's the real thing. They only throw stones at things that shine. That's why they try to provoke you. To dull your light, but you don't rise, you don't swing, you don't defend, you elevate, you live, you move forward, you grow in silence, you build in peace, and that quiet progress, that's what speaks the loudest. That's what leaves them speechless. So the next time someone tries to get a rise out of you, breathe. Step back. Smile if you have to, because your silence doesn't mean defeat. It means mastery. It means presence. It means you're no longer playing small with people who refuse to rise. And when you operate like that, you're not just protecting your peace. You're setting the standard. You're changing the room without raising your voice. You're becoming a force that can't be shaken, because the strongest response is no response. So what does it all mean? It means you don't have to fight every battle to prove you're strong. You don't have to answer every insult to show you have pride. And you don't have to speak every time to be heard. In a world addicted to noise, your silence becomes revolutionary. It says, I know who I am. It says, I know where I'm going. It says, I don't have to come down to your level to rise above. Let them underestimate you. Let them misread your stillness, because the real ones, the ones building legacies, raising families, breaking cycles, chasing purpose, they know the strongest response is no response, not out of fear, but out of focus. So carry yourself with calm, walk with peace in your pocket, and the next time someone tries to bait you into a storm, remember, you are the calm. Be still, be unshaken, and let your life speak louder than your words ever could. Thank you.